If you've listened to the show for any length of time, then you've heard us talk about having a purpose in your business, a big why that helps you, your employees, and the rest of the world understand why you exist. In fact, purpose is one of the 10 principles of success we wrote about in our book, Blue Collar Proud. And our guest today also knows a thing or two about how purpose connects with profits. She's an angel investor, a multimillionaire serial entrepreneur, and author of the best-selling book, The Path to Wealth, 7 Spiritual Steps for Financial Abundance. Proud Nation, please welcome to the show, May McCarthy. Hi, May.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you for coming on. I think it's going to be a great discussion. Purpose is something that we believe is essential to business success. And we define success as being much more than just money in the bank. It means growing a business that's strong enough to affect the world and the community around you. So let's talk about what you see purpose, the role of purpose in the life of the business and the business owner.
Well, the purpose of your company is why you do what you do. You know, many of us know what our businesses do, but why do you do it? That helps you to stay motivated when you're clear on that. And it also, if you have any employees, helps them to stay motivated as well. And I've known that in growing the 7 different companies that I've had. We always had a purpose statement, no matter what we were doing. And employees found that they were more innovative if they kept that purpose at the forefront of their thoughts, the why that we did what we did. In our last company, for instance, we did have some software and equipment for hospital systems, so we had a what that we did. But when we all discussed why we do it, the answer was to save lives. Why do we do what we do? To save lives.
Yeah.
And most companies that have purpose statements find that they end up being more profitable. And I'm so happy that they're finally trying to measure this. There was a Harvard Business Review article where a study had been done by Ernst & Young, and they interviewed a whole bunch of different CEOs of different companies, and there were about 474 of them. And when they took a look at their profitability compared to those that had really clear purpose statements, what they found was that the ones that had purpose statements that all of the employees knew were more profitable.
Isn't that interesting?
Doesn't surprise me at all. In fact, I'm going to ask you a quick question, because one of the things that I have noticed is when you ask a business owner, why do you do what you do? So many of them just right out of the box will say, my kids or my wife, or put it's something that they say this is my why. Okay, but it's not really a business purpose. So is there a difference between a personal reason why somebody would do something and a purpose statement for a business? And if so, can you speak on that a little bit?
I sure can. First of all, I think that anybody that owns a business should really understand what their personal purpose is. My personal purpose is to help others and to be helped, to help others succeed and to be successful myself. So it's very, very simple. And when I do that, I find that in my business, there's a similar purpose. You know, to save lives essentially is to help others. And if I can do that effectively, then I, of course, am going to be successful in return because people will buy our solutions. But I think that it's important for people to get really clear on their personal purpose. And those people that have proved to be hugely successful. And there's some questions that you can ask yourself that will help you to identify what your personal purpose is. You know, one question is, what did you used to do when you were a little kid and you lost hours and hours and hours doing because you just love doing it. I know this guy, Steve, and what he loved to do was he would take apart all of the telephones and the appliances, the small appliances in his house. He'd hop on his bike and ride down to the fix-it shop and get some advice on how to fix these things. I mean, he just lost hours and hours doing that. So what did you do when you were a kid that you just loved doing? And then the second question is, what have other people told you you're good at? And, a lot of people identified that Steve was pretty good with his hands. I mean, he could look at things and come up with a way to fix it. Anything that was an electronic or a plumbing or anything that had a problem, he would figure out a way to find the help that he needed if he didn't know how to fix it, but he was intent on fixing it. And then the final question of the three questions is, what do you think you're good at? And Steve knew he was good with his hands. So what he found out was that his personal purpose, in terms of identifying, what he loved to do, was he ended up. Let me see if I can get it here, because he had a really great one. He said that his personal purpose was, I help make others' lives easier and less complicated. That's his personal purpose. And he went on to start a really successful plumbing company.
That's hidden in that statement, though, to make people's lives easier and less complicated, is that person has understood that he gets pleasure from the work he does when that result is achieved. In other words, It's about serving other people, right? And the listeners of our show are service business owners, and they tell us all the time, and we're service business owners as well, that that is the thing that we get the most enjoyment out of, is when we know that our work has made someone's life better, easier. It's created enjoyment in their world. We've solved a problem of theirs that it brings them relief. Those are all things that motivate us. Lewis Carroll is, of course, the writer of Alice in the Looking Glass. He's also a mathematician, but he has this quote, and I actually put this at the bottom of my email signatures. It says just this: one of the deep secrets of life is that all that is really worth doing is what we do for others. And that's been one of the most impactful statements to me. It reminds me that when I'm others focused, I get more enjoyment in my own life. It's that paradox of when I focus on other people, my life gets better.
Yeah. So if people can answer those three questions, what did you do that you lost a bunch of time and you just loved doing when you were a kid? What other people have told you you're good at, and what you think you're good at doing. If you could answer those, you're going to find an intersection in those answers that really gives you a clue to your personal purpose. And I'm a big believer that, we bring our personal purpose into our businesses when we're the owner of the business. And if we can convey that not only to our employees, but also our customers, our suppliers and vendors, and any of the stakeholders that are involved in our business, then when everybody's in agreement that they understand what the purpose is, somehow there's another level of motivation and energy that goes towards making the business successful.
Like the secret sauce, the hidden power or strength that the business plugs into, that just gets everybody interested and motivated in the work and staying engaged with it long term.
It's the energy.
Yeah,
The purpose really does. It fires up the energy to where everybody knows what they're doing and why. And
right.
Yeah, and it's like plugging into the socket and saying, let's go.
Right. And, it's kind of interesting what people come up with for company purposes. Like, we all know the Kellogg's company, right? They manufacture cereals and food products. But did you know that their purpose is nourishing, the why that they do what they do is nourishing families so they can flourish and thrive? Isn't that interesting?
It has nothing to do with what they sell.
Right. Right. So when people are trying to discover why their company exists, um, they shouldn't get discouraged if it's, radically different than what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really important that you can have a purpose that is deep and meaningful and do things that other people may not realize is deep and meaningful to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really true because we don't ever know. I mean, if somebody's out here mowing a lawn, I don't know why they mow lawns, but it could be a really deep seated, meaningful thing to them. And it shows with the way they do lawn care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that's great. That's a really good point. So, let's talk a minute about the owner getting everybody involved and buy-in on purpose. Uh, where does an owner go if they feel like there's a disconnect from their personal purpose and the purpose they want of their business? How do they direct or help their employees kind of get on board with that?
Well, one good question I used to ask my employees, why do you work here? What is it about working here that you like? And those that said, well, I really like when I get a chance to help my coworkers and my customers.
Hmm.
I love being able to help them because I know that their business is going directly to my paycheck. As we have customers, we have revenue, and I get paid, and I get health benefits and whatever other benefits. And so I actually went a little step further with my employees, and I gave them all the same job description. Now they had different tasks, and I mean, excuse me, they all had different job descriptions, but they had the same job. And I wrote it on the back of their business cards. Now, granted, this wasn't a blue collar business, this was a software business. But on the back of all of their business cards, it said, I work towards the success of my coworkers, my customers, my suppliers and vendors, and everybody related to my business.
Yeah.
And what I would tell them is that if they did that, if they did their job, what would happen is they would find that if when there was a problem that they could find a solution very, very quickly. If they knew without a shadow of a doubt that that was their job, they would find that it would be easier to find solutions, to have creative innovations, to be able to be of service, and more importantly, if they gave out success, they would receive success in return.
It's a
Yeah.
clarifying thing when you know what your purpose is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I do is ask them some questions. What do you like about working here? What do you like to do? I've had to move some employees into different positions because maybe they were hired for a particular position that they're not very good at and they don't like. But when I found out what they do like to do, they made a much better, customer service agent or salesperson or a purchasing agent that needed to make sure we had the right supplies and materials to be able to do the installations that we needed to do. So asking them some questions to make sure that they're in the right seat on the bus.
In growing your companies, did you find that, and this is a topic that we talk about all the time on the show, and that's the younger generation coming in to work in blue collar jobs, but in the workforce in general. Do you find that it's more important now to communicate purpose? And do you find that the workers coming in, millennial workers coming into your businesses, need to feel connected to that purpose more than previous generations?
I wouldn't say that they need to be connected more, but there's definitely a different way to deal with millennials and the younger generation. Um, I think the older generation had more of a sense of responsibility and creativity in terms of thinking things through. I do remember having somebody come in, and one of my employees asked that young intern to file some stuff. And when the intern said file stuff, she said, yeah, I want you to put all these things in the file cabinet. So she came back later, opened up the file cabinet, and the stack of files were just sitting in the file cabinet. But what my older employee meant was devise a system, alphabetize or something to put the files in the file cabinet. But what the younger generation heard was just open up the drawer and throw this stack in there. So I think that there is a communication issue between older generation and younger generation, where the younger generation needs to have more specific instruction. They also don't like to have conversations like we used to have. And I remember sitting around with older people and really understanding what their success in business was like. And they would tell stories and things like that. And the real young ones, they don't want to waste time doing that. They just want to be told what to do and get back to work. So there's they don't use stories as much as we did to understand how and why people do what they do. And so, yeah, it's very important to explain the why and to get their buy-in.
We found that the more connected a millennial employee is to our purpose, our why, the more they take ownership of the role and the job, and the more they start thinking about what it is that we need them to do and taking that initiative to create those systems and to bring input and find even better ways to do it than the way that we had told them it needed to be done. And all of that stems from feeling connected to that bigger sense of purpose that goes beyond, I simply have a list of tasks I need you to do, and this is exactly how I want you to do it. Feeling like they're a part of something bigger than themselves has been a huge key to unlocking the potential of millennial employees.
I love it. Congratulations.
Yeah,
I guess, as all people are different, all organizations can be different, but I do believe that the more connected any employee is to coworkers, the purpose and the mission and value statements for the company, the better everyone's going to work together and accomplish what needs to be done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you use the example of the filing system, because as you said that, I was over here smiling because the guys that are young that work for us would have said, "Why in the world are you still using paper files? Let's scan these suckers and get them in, file them in the computer where they need to go, so you can back up and sort them and do all this stuff to them." And what we find and what we tell a lot of our clients that are trying to go paperless and using the cell phones and smartphones and whatnot and iPads out in the field is, man, if you don't know how to use them, get some of your young techs up there to teach you how to use this thing, because they are doing it. What is the term you always use, Carter? They're native.
Yes.
They're native users, and so we're trying to learn how to use that. We're still filing stuff in our filing cabinets. They've moved on in technology. So if you have a company who wants to move on in technology, use your young hires to help you do that.
Oh, that's the truth. Yeah, I dated myself, didn't I?
Well, no, I've had to learn that too. I'm the one that is the least native of anything around here. So anytime I need help, boy, I get great help from these guys so that I can understand things and use my devices a little bit, better and like they're supposed to be used. So I think sometimes what happens with the younger generations, and it doesn't matter when we came around. I mean, my dad did it to me. Is there is such a gap between how they lived and how we live. And so there's always that communication. I'm so glad you brought that up because communicating across that gap is the answer to being able to do things succinctly between generations. I mean, you have to have that communication piece.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. And the more connected and comfortable they feel, then you'll be able to bring out that creative and innovative sense within them. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. But having that purpose to solidify, and that's the other thing. I think when all the generations in your business, and we have people that are close to, I don't know if I'm not going to say his name, but we have somebody probably close to 70 all the way down to early 20s. And what we find is the fact that they love to serve, because that's one of our core values here is to be of service. And because they love to serve, they all communicate really well because they're so ingrained in the purpose of our company. We know what
Right.
we do. And so that eliminates a lot of issues as well. So buying into that purpose really helps your team kind of come together no matter what their generations
Yeah,
are.
and if a company doesn't have a actual written stated purpose, that might be a really fun exercise to have all of those different generations together and have a brainstorming session on, you know, what people's opinions are of why the company exists.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have any tips for doing that? Of writing a purposeful purpose statement, if you will, a meaningful purpose statement.
Well, it could be fun to have each person, especially executive leadership, whoever owns the company, and if there's a accounting or a chief financial officer or somebody, but whoever the owners are, that might be um, a fun exercise to discover personal purpose first. Answer those three questions. Then get the whole group together and find out, in their opinion, um, what do customers like about what we're doing? What do we as employees like about what we're doing? What have other people in the industry said about why they think we're doing what we're doing? And then gather this brainstorming answers for all three of those questions together and see where they overlap. And then based on those characteristics or talents or skills or descriptors, start to build a purpose statement.
One of
So maybe customers say, I really love, I think that this customer, this supplier, this plumber, this roofer, I think they're great. They're on time. They're professional. They helped me out of a bind. They were fast. They were clean. They were so nice and helpful. And spent the time to answer all my questions, and they were a great value. So that, those are some of the kinds of things that maybe a customer says. And then maybe all the employees say things like, we like working here because we're able, when we're out in the field, we can make decisions that represent our customer and represent our company really well. And that we have the freedom to be able to say that the company's going to back our work. And that it's that we're going to be clean up every day and be professional and on time and a good value. Maybe there's some things that the employees say about why the company exists. And then if you've had anybody, maybe if you're a roofer, you have suppliers who provide you with materials. Maybe listen to what some of their descriptors of why your company is a good company. And then lay all that out and see where it overlaps.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I know beforehand, before we came on air, we spoke with you a few minutes, and you talked about how many brothers that you had that were in the blue collar industries. So have you helped them through this process? And if you just elaborate on that just a little bit.
I haven't needed to, because they all really live their purpose. Our dad was a surgeon who moved everybody to Hawaii in 1958. And then the last 3 kids were born. So there's 10 kids total.
Oh, wow.
And what he did was he drilled into all of us over and over and over again the idea of fair exchange of value. And so he would give away free health care to people that couldn't afford it. And he would look them in the eye and say, look, you're sick. I have to get you well. All right? You and I are going to work on getting you well. Do not worry about paying me. There's going to be some day in the future where you figure out a fair exchange of value. But right now, we just need to get you well. Now, he was a very successful surgeon, a very successful doctor, and people paid a lot of money that could afford it. But he didn't turn away people who couldn't afford it. And at the end of the year, what he was able to show us was that based on everything that we received all year long, I mean, we got clothes, we got fish, we got food, we got entertainment, we got all sorts of stuff. When he would calculate what he received, he said, I received more than I gave away in value. But you want to always, everything you do, you want to do as you giving first and you'll receive. You give the very best that you can, and you will receive a fair exchange of value.
Wow.
So all of us have a purpose that includes giving and receiving.
My dad was a dentist, and I can remember the first time he came home with a chicken that someone had given him as payment for his services, and how strange that was to me, but how delighted he was that he was able to do something for someone, and they were able to give him what they deemed was, something of value, and how important that was. That same lesson, exactly. Boy, what a great place to end this discussion. That is such I think, a powerful statement about what purpose needs to look like for all of us, because we all share that human DNA, that human compelling need to be useful to other people and provide value to other people. That's just a tremendous thing.
I agree.
May, I know people are going to want to connect with you online. And we haven't even talked about your book. There's so much that we could have talked about, and I wish we had more time, but tell people where they can find you online and connect with you.
They can find me on my website. It's maymccarthy.com. That's MaymcCarthy.com. And for your listeners, there's a way that they can have the first 3 chapters of my book for free. If they just go to maymccarthy.com, they can go ahead and download those first 3 chapters for free. It actually did make it to Amazon's bestseller list when it came out, but I told my publisher that we had to at least give away 3 free chapters in case anybody wanted it. So
well, that's excellent. And I've taken a peek at the table of contents. I love how you've organized the book, and that would be a great conversation to have with you at some point as well. May, we always love to end our interview by asking our guest for a quote that has meant something to them in their own journey. Maybe you could share what that quote is and tell us what it means to you.
Oh my goodness, there are so very many. I have a ton of quotes in my book, of course, but the one that is really meaningful to me right now, because I travel all over the world. I'm hired to come and speak not only to executives and businesses, but also to groups that are trying to achieve greater success. And the quote that I came up with, that I created, is that success is not a secret. It's a system.
Wow.
It's good.
It's provable and repeatable every time.
Yeah, I agree.
That is brilliant. May McCarthy, thank you for being on our show today.
Thank you so much for having me. And all the best to your listeners and to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.